Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to your Lunch Break Live. My name is Savannah Harinkyu if you're new here, and if you're not, thank you so much for coming back. Today is Tuesday, August the 30th, and today we're talking about something that I know a lot of you have already been talking about this week, and that is game week. This is technically, I guess, the second college football Saturday coming up here, but the first one for some of our hometown teams, including the University of Alabama and Auburn. Today, we're going to be talking about Auburn. We're going to be talking about Coach Bryan Harsin going into his second season and more. I'm joined by our Auburn reporter, Nubyjas Wilborn. Nubyjas, you wrote a story yesterday. I'm going to go ahead and link here, and I think it does a great job at kind of going ahead and illustrating what your biggest questions are. So I want to walk through some of those before we talk a little bit of shop. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Hey, and everybody, if you've got questions about Auburn, Bryan Harsin, college football in general, drop them here. We will make sure to give you an answer if we've got one. And if not, we'll get back to you. So, Nubyjas, let's talk about those questions. Now, question number one that I know a lot of people have been talking about this week is the quarterback choice. TJ Finley, is he ready for that job?
Well, I mean, they say he is. We'll find out. I mean, it's difficult because we only get to see the team maybe 25 minutes of practice here and there. He has made some good throws in those practices, but we don't get to see all of what they do. They say he is, so we'll find out. I mean, look, he had under 55% completion rate last year. That's not ideal. You typically want to be in the 60s. We'll see if he can get there. If he can get there, if he can show improvement, then Auburn could be good. If not, it could be a long season on the Plains. Maybe a short one for Bryan Harsin, but a long season for Auburn fans.
Well, and you talk about that percentage there. Do we know what he's been hitting in practice? Have they released that?
Well, they haven't given exact details for us, but, depending on who you talk to, he's been more in the 60, 65% range. So upwards trending, which if you talk to people who've seen a lot of it, they will say it was clear cut that TJ Finley was the winner of that competition between Zach Calzada, here, and Robbie Ashford, and the freshman Holden Greene.
Well, I guess we're, the fun thing too about college football is while we say we don't, in football probably in general, we don't have hard evidence on this, right? This is not like what I'm typically looking for in black and white in say court records here. We've got to trust those experts there, and we will see it for ourselves on Saturday. So TJ Finley, we're going to see, but it sounds like what you're saying is all of the experts here say he is ready for the job. So
well, I mean, the people around, in and around the Auburn team. Now, again, they're going to always have a confident view on their team because, kind of have to, right? You kind of have to show confidence, at least outwardly. Now we'll see if they're telling the truth. And first game is against Mercer on Saturday.
6 p.m. Tigers take on the Bears there. So that should be a good game there. So let's go on to the line. Now, offensive line, we've talked about this. We talked about this last year for Auburn. What is it looking like this year?
Well, it's going to be interesting because you're going to be missing center Nick Brahms. He's out for the year. We talked about that. So now is Tate Johnson ready to be the center. And then from there, you got Brandon Council as one of your guards. So you got a lot of experience on an offensive line that at times struggled, but also at times they did some good things. So can they be good enough? Again, it's one of those things that we don't know the answer to. We assume they're going to be better, but we have to see it.
Nubyjas, can one compensate for the other? If TJ Finley is maybe not at his game, can a great line compensate for that? And vice versa. If your line is not where it needs to be, can TJ Finley kind of compensate for that if he is over where he needs to be?
Well, let's start from the latter question there. Yes, the quarterback can get the ball out quicker. The quarterback can extend plays with his legs. There are things that a quarterback can do to help out an offensive line. Vice versa, there are things the offensive line can do. They can definitely make sure the blocking is comfortable and set up to give Finley enough time to see plays open. But then from there, receivers got to get open. It is literally 11 people doing what they got to do, but it does start the offensive line. And so, yes, a good offensive line can compensate for bad quarterback play, excellent quarterback play, particularly getting rid of the ball quickly on throws can compensate for an offensive line maybe having some struggles.
What about our receivers this year? I say our. What about Auburn's receivers this year? I got to be a little neutral here.
Well, you start with Cedric Jackson, the senior. You look at Malcolm Johnson Jr., you look at Tavares Dawson, you look at the transfer Corey Moore. You have a lot of talent there. It's just going to be a matter of who can put it together in those big games.
I love the way that you said that. It's like, yes, maybe some people can compensate for others on the team, but at the end of the day, all 11 have got to work together. They've got to get that ball to the other side. They've got to be a team here. No one person can be a star while everybody else struggles and the team win. I think that's a good insight there. What else are we looking for technically on the team, or what are you looking for to see if Auburn has made any changes since last year on that field?
Well, I mean, I do think it starts with the running game. Can they get crucial yards when they need them? Will Tank Bigsby, Jarquez Hunter, and the freshman Amari Austin have running lanes to get through? All right. Will the quarterback make completions when necessary? Can this offense string together enough points? I think the defense is going to be better than people believe. I think they have a lot of talent there. I think there are a few question marks at edge rusher, but you have two of the best edge rushers in the conference with Derek Hall and Q Leota. So if they can put it together, then yeah, you may be talking about a team that could exceed expectations.
Let's talk a little bit about some things, I should say, plural, that have gone on off the field. We've talked about some of the technicalities on the field. Off the field, you have Bryan Harsin, again, in his second season as Auburn head coach. That's a conversation we'll get to in a minute. But backing on that, we have Alan Greene leaving Auburn, leaving that athletic director seat. Now, Alan Greene was the one that ended up hiring Harsin. So what does Alan Greene's departure mean for Bryan Harsin, for the Tigers in general?
I mean, it's not necessarily good for Bryan Harsin, you would think, right? Typically, because keep in mind, he didn't hire Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl was already here. This is part of the basketball coach. Now, Alan Greene did stand behind Bruce Pearl. Alan Greene also got the Neville family, in on the arena expansion, the naming rights. You look at baseball, going to the College World Series. You look at gymnastics, having one of its best seasons. A lot of good things happened in Alan Greene's 4.5 years. The hire of Bryan Harsin probably is his swan song, unfortunately. And it means Bryan Harsin, he's already on a hot seat. It just gets a little hotter. So what does that mean? Who knows? But is it positive for Harsin? No. And I don't think it's good for the athletic department either as a collective, because you talk to the athletes, a lot of them saw Alan Greene as an aspirational figure. A lot of them saw him as someone like, hey, here's a guy who played college sports. Now he's in charge of a major athletic department. That gives me hope that I can do the same. And now he's not there anymore. So that's a tough thing. Now, on the flip side, he probably wasn't the best cultural fit, but then you have to ask yourself, what does that mean? And Auburn has to ask itself, what does that mean? Because on paper, there's a lot of things he did well, but ultimately, he's not there anymore. I think it's not a great thing for the athletic department, but that's my opinion. There are people who think that this was a long time coming. Either way, happening a week before the season just doesn't look good for Bryan Harsin at all. But hey, there's one way to solve it: win.
Well, and that is what Bryan Harsin's going to have to do. That's what has been the eyes on Bryan Harsin for weeks. And I would argue even since last year, since the season ended last year. Now, Alan Greene's departure does mean, as you say, that eyes are on winning, maybe even more. Bryan Harsin went, I believe it was 6-7 last year. So he's got to turn it around this season. Now, Nubyjas, it is also kind of a fact at this point, Auburn did not have a great recruiting game in the offseason. So tell me a little bit about that, and also what Auburn and what specifically Bryan Harsin has done in this offseason. A little tumultuous for him at times, and we remember the kind of holidays of last year. But what has he done in this offseason to really prepare that team to get ready for some wins on the field?
Well, I think you got to start recruiting. He did get a lot in the transfer portal. There's several guys. You look at Jeffrey Emba, you look at Coy Moore, you look at Craig McDonald, all guys who came from the transfer portal who will likely contribute to Auburn this year. All right. Then you look at recruiting. Yeah, they may not have the volume, but if you look at all the recruits, most of them are all 4-stars. So there's a possibility of talent coming in. There's still going to be people who are going to come visit in the next couple of weeks. Recruiting can get better. But overall, I think it's just really getting people on the same page, getting everybody on the team buying into what he is preaching. And at least from what they're saying, it sounds like everyone's bought in. Now, again, we won't know until the game start, but the attitude is different. The energy is good in the building. I'm in there pretty regularly, and there's a lot of good energy, a lot of good vibes. So we'll see if that translates to wins.
Is that energy different than how it was last year? I know it's probably not fair to compare to the first game of last year because then that was Bryan Harsin's debut as Auburn's coach. But even looking at mid-season when he got his footing a little bit, is the energy today right now better than that energy last season with Bryan Harsin?
Well, absolutely. I think his energy is better. I think the players are relating to him better. I think he's relating to them better. So, yeah, there's definitely growth. A lot of growth, a lot more positivity. It appears, at least from what players are saying, that they're all on the same page with buy-in of, hey, we're trying to win together. This is what it takes to win. They're doing the work. Now, again, we aren't going to know for sure until they play games, but it appears at least that there's a lot more messaging going positive than there was last year.
And let's talk a little bit about that schedule again. The Auburn Tigers face off with Mercer on Saturday at 6 p.m. Central Time. And, Nubyjas, it's a weird beginning of the schedule here for Auburn. So tell me a little bit about that beginning of the schedule and what this schedule looks like.
Well, I mean, look, you get 5 home games, right? You play against Mercer, San Jose State. The assumption is Auburn should win both of those games. We'll see how that goes because anything can happen. Then week 3, you get Penn State coming in town. Who knows what Penn State is this year? They have a veteran quarterback in Sean Clifford. They beat Auburn last year up there. So that could be a big game. Game 3 probably tell you a whole lot. Then you look at game 4, Missouri, game 5, LSU, all, SEC opponents. You don't know much about what LSU is going to be yet. They've still got a quarterback battle going on from what I understand. So we'll see what that looks like. Then week 6, hey, yeah, a little small game against the Georgia Bulldogs there, defending national champions and rival. Then after that, you go to Ole Miss, get a bye week. To me personally, if Bryan Harsin is going to stay, Auburn needs to come out of those first 7 games no worse than 5-2. Any worse than that, it could get really weird, particularly if you get embarrassed against Georgia and you struggle against Ole Miss. Now, on the flip side, hey, you come out, you win these first 2 games, you beat Penn State, you beat Missouri, maybe you lose to LSU, you don't get embarrassed in Athens, you beat Ole Miss. All right, you come out of that bye week, you're ranked, you have a good chance as you wind up having to still play Arkansas, having to still play Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Western Kentucky, and then, of course, the Iron Bowl against Alabama. So this schedule can take things a lot of different ways. It's a tough schedule, but we'll see what Auburn can do.
It's a tough schedule, especially towards the middle and kind of going into the end there. So kind of an easing in, or at least it should be for Auburn. And then when you hit that middle, it seems like there could be a bump in the road there. But at the same time, from the viewer standpoint, from the fans, that's what makes it fun, right?
Well, absolutely. Listen, it can be fun. It should be fun. Now we'll see what happens because, again, this is the SEC. This is why you're in this conference. This is what it is. You're going to play good teams every week, particularly in the Western Division, at least until Oklahoma and Texas come in and change it all up. But for now, you're talking about playing in one of the best conferences in one of the best divisions in all of football. And, yeah, you're going to play good teams every week.
Look, Nubyjas, I think some of us, I know that this is something that Coach Saban always preaches is you don't underestimate anybody. And you just mentioned that about Mercer. So what is Mercer looking like? What's their team looking like? And should this be a problem for Auburn?
Well, I mean, listen, they scored 60 points in the first game. Now, again, it's FCS, a little different than, the bowl subdivision teams and all that good stuff. And obviously they're not in the Power 5 conference. But, hey, Mercer recruits a lot of the same area of athletes that Auburn does, as far as, North Atlanta, Middle Georgia, South Georgia, East Alabama, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, they're going to be players who are going to be very familiar with Auburn's players because they've been to the same high schools, went to the same camps coming up. It's just some guys went to Auburn, some guys went to Mercer. So expect the Mercer team is going to come in here ready to play. Like I said, they scored 60 points in the first game. They run the ball pretty well. So, I mean, they're going to be a good team. They're going to come in ready to play. I mean, Auburn should beat them. But, I mean, listen, they run the ball. They have sound blocking. They can catch. I mean, look, they're not a bad team, man. They're not a bad team. Don't sleep on them.
Nubyjas, what are you looking for? See one star thing in your notebook that is starred that you are looking for on Saturday when you walk into Jordan-Hare.
Well, I mean, I want to see how Finley plays. I want to see what he's able to do. Can he dissect an offense? Can he handle the live fire when he can get hit? Will he stand in the pocket? Those are the things I want to see. Starting from there. And, of course, how they run the ball and everything else. But definitely, I want to see what Finley does when he's a starter? Is he ready?
I think that's going to be on a lot of our minds on Saturday. Again, Saturday, 6 p.m., Auburn faces off against Mercer there on the Plains. Saturday, 6 p.m. Saturday is going to be a big day for a lot of SEC fans. Nubyjas, I'm sure everybody is already counting down the days and counting down the hours. So, Nubyjas, thank you for your analysis here. Everybody watching, thank you so much. We will make sure we talk Alabama later on this week before their game on Saturday as well. Have a great day.